Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs, your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. We are back. Just to confirm, the transfer window is still open. Don't close your eyes. Don't close off now. We're still open for business here, despite the fact we have done some early business during this window. If you're listening to the show for the first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're of course on X, we are on Instagram, we are on Facebook too. We're joined by a very, very special returning journalist to the show. But alongside me, it feels like as always for these shows, and I love seeing this man's face, because you know when you see this man, it's the transfer window or there's a very, very big Spurs game that he's covering. It can only be wonderful. Matty Hayes, back. Matt, how are you, my man? Love to be back alongside me.
Lovely to be back on with you, Ricky. As always, looking forward to a fantastic show, as is always the case on here, and looking forward to digging into a good performance and a good window as well.
Matt, are we in a really unique position here where we've got absolute top-tier journalists joining us between now and the rest of the month? And it feels almost like at the moment that, look, I think whilst everyone is really, really happy by the start to the window, I think there are still many out there like me and you that would still like to see some improvement in certain areas of the squad. But is it weird that we're slightly, am I right? Forgive me if I'm using the wrong word here, Matt. Are we comfortable at the moment?
I don't know what that means. You're gonna might have to look that one up. No, absolutely. I think that there's been more than once in the past where we felt like it was different. We've been told it was going to be different. I think this is probably the first time where it's actually happening. 2 deals done in the first 11 days of the window, was it? And we'd all love to see another one come in, but whether I think we've always gone into the last couple of days of the window saying we need to get this player to have a chance in the second half of the season, whereas now we're saying we'd like to get a player just to make it a 10 out of 10 window, because it's up there as a 7, 8, maybe even a 9 out of 10 already. So it's unique, it's weird, but it's good that we've got some brilliant insight with us to try and actually make sense of it all.
Absolutely. Now, it's quite a nice position this journalist comes onto the show, because bear in mind the last couple of times he's been on, it has been in the point of crisis where we're pleading, Sami, let us know something, anything, what's happening, give us something, anything. And he's smiling, which obviously means we could be smiling. And we've got the wonderful chief football reporter for the Mail, does so much online with them. We've got the wonderful Sami Mokbel back on Last Word on Spurs. Sam, lovely to have you here, mate. Look, we're in a good point at the moment. We're in a good place. How are you, firstly, Matt? How's your window going at the moment?
Yeah, window. Listen, the January ones are weird because unlike Tottenham have got their business done, and you guys, as you say, Ricky, for the first time in years, you're comfortable sitting there on January the 15th. You're happy with what you've done, but a lot of clubs, I think, are going to wait until the latter sort of few, like 3 or 4 days of the window before doing their business, just because there's better deals to be, there's better deals to be had, I think, in terms of price and how much clubs are willing to pay and how much clubs are willing to sell their players for. The good thing with Tottenham is that they've identified their targets really, really early. They've obviously got a strategy that they put together before the window even started, and they've moved really, really efficiently to go and get those players over the line. Reguilón, that deal's been in the offing since almost since the start of December, and that's been moving along really, really nicely. And that deal's now over the line, and obviously the Werner one that broke a couple of Saturday morning, I remember it now, and that took everyone by surprise. But again, that deal was wrapped up in a matter of days, really, and it's testament to, I think, the way that Tottenham have handled this window. Now that that we're sitting here, as we say, on January the 15th, and you guys are pretty happy with the way things have gone, I think.
Yeah, which again I think is interesting, Sam, given the amount of years we've had you on Last Word on Spurs, and mate, there's been some difficult windows, we know. I mean, look, we've been dragging you out to the 31st and saying, Sam, is it still going to happen? I mean, look, we've been there under, of course, the Pedro Porro times, and of course, Bentancur, Kulusevski, and look, with all genuine, humbleness at the moment, we are in a good position. But I think we've said this point, and we met before, that it's all very well doing it one window. I think what we want to see, Matt, is that continuous now cycle from the club. That isn't just going to be a full storm. We want to see this continually where the manager is being packed. How important is that for you, Matt? Again, we talk about the fact that, and we feel at the moment has been back so far this window. I know you're the same as me, Matt. I feel we all would like to see maybe a additional player come in, maybe a central midfielder. But how important is that, Matt, to not get away from the fact that this can't be a one-off? we need Spurs to be acting like a big club like this every single window, Matty?
It's absolutely crucial, and it's something that I'm hoping Daniel Levy and the board will have learned from the past. I think the most comparable period of Tottenham in recent history, looking at comparing to now, would be when things really started getting going under Pochettino, and we had a few good windows. We signed some brilliant players, but then we went 18 months without signing anyone, and it all started to unravel from there. And it was that, not injecting any fresh players into the squad, and let things go a little bit stale. I think that the mentality when you get so close to signing a Jack Grealish for so little and then watching him go and do what he's done, I think it just, everything goes a little bit too stale. So I'm hoping Levy will look back and he'll realize that we do need to keep things fresh. And look, like we said, we've been told in the past that things are going to be a little bit different. There's a reason right now that things are different. I'm sure Postecoglou has played some part in that. I'm sure Fabio Paratici has, and everyone else, Scott Munn, who's come in around that setup. I'm sure they're all playing a part. So let's hope that they can, continue putting that pressure on Daniel Levy and maybe continuing to take a little bit of control of the footballing side of the club away from him, and really, really kind of nail on what we're doing at the moment, because it's working. We just need to keep at it, and who knows where it could bring us. But yeah, if we haven't learned from that, big questions will need to be asked, but I'm sure we have.
Amen. Like I say, Jamie's saying there, Matty is like drinking cocoa smooth. Look at that. What a compliment that is, mate. Get it on the CV, Matt. I tell you what, we're going high up here. We're going high up like cocoa, these days.
I'll have a tifo on the wall next week.
Sam, I've got to ask you, do you feel this will be one of your quieter January windows in comparison to the last few years? I think many were looking at this window, and we've seen obviously previous real high net spends. Do you feel in general with the Premier League, with FFP, and we'll come on to Spurs a little bit later on that subject, do you feel this will be one of your quieter January windows, or can it all kick off a bit later on the window? What are you expecting?
Yeah, listen, you never rule anything out, do you, in sort of transfer windows, particularly in January windows where, clubs who are, for example, threatened with relegation are desperate to strengthen their squads. And I think there are a lot of clubs that are open for business, but I just don't think, because of the sort of reasons you've really touched on, Ricky, with regard to FFP, I don't think that the clubs, certainly in the clubs in the Premier League, have the spending capacity that they have had in the past. Going into the window, a lot of the information that I was getting, and this isn't Tottenham related, because obviously we know you've gone on to sign Dragusin on a permanent deal, but a lot of the information that I was getting was that clubs would look to do loans, much like you've done with Timo Werner. Would rather do loans just to keep their squads ticking over until the end of the season before going again and doing the bulk of their spending ahead of next season in the summer. I still expect that to be the case, unless there are, very good sort of cut price bargain deals that aren't available at the moment that become available later on in the window towards the latter part of it. But yeah, the financial fair play rules are impinging really on a lot of the club's ability to do business, and whether that's right or wrong is probably a completely different other show, and it's another debate. But the rules are there. The rules are there for a reason, and clubs have to abide by them or pay the consequences, as we've seen with Everton twice now this season, and Nottingham Forest today.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I know the Everton one is fairly unique, given the fact they appealed a ban. And they've been charged again. I mean, listen, life as an Everton fan looks tough at the moment. It really, really does look tough. Look, that's a great footballing club. Hopefully they'll find their way. I mean, Sean Dyche as a manager there, he'll be, I'm sure, firmly putting his stake in the ground. That's for sure. Look, turn our attention back to Spurs. Sam, we're aware that obviously you was up at Old Trafford yesterday. Got to be honest, we'll touch upon this to begin with and we'll go on to Ange. I mean, look, from my perspective, it's not often in the last 20 years I go into Old Trafford and actually have genuine confidence that, number one, we're not going to lose the game. And number two, I'll be really, really disappointed if we don't come away with all the 3 points. And yesterday, for me, I look at United at the moment. They are, well, to be honest, a complete opposite of where Spurs are. Spurs know their identity. They know really what their best players are. They know their brand of football. They're going to carry on playing that football. When United, I mean, I'm sure Sam as well, I know you touch upon them as well. You're not sure what you're ever going to get with United. They're such an inconsistent football club. And I know, again, they've had that recent, obviously, of course, investment, which will take its time in terms of filtering through. But I look at games yesterday as a genuine, real missed opportunity. And whilst I'm really proud of the players to come back twice, obviously we're aware of the fact there was illness that went right through the camp. And again, and credit to him for using that squad accordingly. Because, look, I think we've always been the case, Matty, as well, that when Spurs in the past have really had to rotate 3, 4, 5 players out of the squad, those coming in simply have not been up to the task, and Spurs would normally go on to lose whatever Premier League game that would be. But that just shows you just how good Ange is in terms of motivating those players to have everybody really built into the project, the philosophy, because we go away from Old Trafford. I think really disappointed that it's only a point. Before I get Matt's take on it, Sam, what do you feel about Spurs' performance up at Old Trafford? What did you make of the game being there yourself?
I thought Tottenham are excellent, and what we obviously it's been sort of well reported and well mooted over the past sort of 24 hours. And the amount you went there, dominated the game, 65% possession. I think you had 19, 20 shots at Old Trafford, albeit against one of the most indifferent Man United teams that I can remember. But you still went there and did it with, I think, is it 10? You got, or 11 players are unavailable for sort of various different reasons. That takes some doing at Old Trafford, in front of Sir Jim Ratcliffe for the first time. The United players would have wanted to put on a show for their new minority sort of stakeholder there, but Tottenham went there, pulled the plug on the atmosphere really, and dominated the game. And I saw some comments, obviously, I'm sure we'll touch on them later, from Roy Keane, who sort of tried to sort of placate the praise that Tottenham were getting after the game. I think there's probably credence to what he was saying, that yes, they didn't win the game and it was still a draw. But I thought the way they went up to Old Trafford and the manner in which they performed, I genuinely believe that was almost like a statement performance, really, and it will certainly serve the players and the squad really, really well going into the sort of the final 3 or 4 months of the season. Because if you can do that without half of your squad, arguably, I was looking at it today, I was writing a piece about it today, out the players that are unavailable yesterday, maybe 3 or 4 of those will probably go straight into the starting 11.
Yep.
Maddison, Son, Bissouma, Kulusevski,
yeah,
and arguably Sarr.
Yeah.
So that's 5 players. That's half your team.
Yeah.
So to go there without those players and still produce that level of performance is testament to, obviously, to the work that Ange has done there and implementing a philosophy and a style of play that you just simply won't move away from, regardless of the circumstances of where you're playing, who you're playing against, whether you've got 10 men or 9 men, as we saw against Chelsea earlier in the season. It's testament to that, but it's also a testament to the belief that I think that has been nurtured now in that squad. But you've had such a good start and a promising start under Ange Postecoglou, and when you have substantial proof of the fact that his methods are working, and what I mean by that are the results. You've had good results. I think that kind of nurtures a belief. So to go up to Old Trafford, to make that sort of performance, okay, without the result, but to make that sort of performance, to put that kind of display in, I think moving forward that will almost sort of serve as a landmark performance, I think.
I do agree. I mean, Matt, bringing it over to you. Look, Gary Neville said upon the finishing of the match, they've come to Old Trafford Spurs and dominated. They should have won. Perhaps the injuries meant they couldn't finish the job in the end. But we've watched an away team that are better, and the away team were without 5 or 6 players. I mean, Matt, I'm not going to steal your eloquent tweet you put out there in relation to what Spurs have done this season against some of the so-called top 4, top 6. But I'll let you explain where Spurs have been this season, what they have done, because when you look at the teams they faced away from home, they've come away unbeaten against those sides. I'm not going to say we're fund them out. I'll let you take over and tell us about those teams and what they have done, Matty.
Yeah, and I mean the Spursy tag is always going to be there. I don't think we're ever going to be able to get away from it, because over the last 5-10 years, I don't think we fit into that as much as other teams have. You know, there's some teams, I'm not going to name them, who've been top at the Christmas 3 times and not won the Premier League yet, who had an 8-point lead, a 10-point lead, and not won the Premier League. But in the games this season, away to Arsenal, we went behind twice, and we came away with a point. At the Etihad, we went behind twice, we came away with a point. And now at Old Trafford, we've gone behind twice and come away with a point. And the Emirates is the only one there where we've had a full squad. I was only looking at the other day, the bench we actually had for that Manchester City game. Because a Newcastle fan, a friend of mine, was giving out about the bench that they had against Manchester City. And in comparison to the bench that we had, there was 4 or 5 youth players on it. There was 2 goalkeepers. Yesterday against United, we had 2 goalkeepers and we still couldn't fill the bench. So many of the circumstances of these games are against us, but still we're able to find that fight. And I think that the benchmark of a good manager is that he's able to improve the starting 11 that he has, whether it's players he's brought in or not. But for a great manager, he improves the whole squad, and that's what Ange Postecoglou has done. And if you want to take positives from the injuries and suspensions we've had this season, there's been a lot of game time for Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, for Ben Davis, for Oliver Skipp, for these players that weren't getting in the team at all earlier in the season, whereas now they're getting their chance to really bed into this new system and get to know what's needed of them if they are ever on the pitch. So short term, yeah, look, we could be top of the table if we didn't have as many injuries as we had. We're only 6 points away in some very winnable games in the middle there. But everyone in this squad is starting to improve, and even to go further in the injuries, what's been most frustrating for me is it always seems to be clusters of the pitch where we're missing players, because Romero and Van de Ven, they were missing at the same time for 5, 6, 7 games. You know, Sami, you were saying there's 5 players that we were missing that would arguably go straight into our starting 11, arguably the front 5 that we're going to need. You know, it's never one player from here, one player from there. It's always just one area of the pitch that's so heavily affected. But we're getting through it, and the fact that we're coming out of this mini winter break still. I know some people might say we're not going to win the title, but we're in with the shout. We're in a title race. It's absolutely crazy, and I think there's been little bit of revisionism about where we actually were last season. I've seen a few people say that Postecoglou came into a decent atmosphere. He said we finished 8th. It couldn't have got any worse. It absolutely could have gotten worse, and it was rapidly getting worse. We sacked an interim manager 9 months ago. I mean, if that doesn't tell you how bad things were, I don't know what could. But Postecoglou has turned it all around. He's brought in some phenomenal players that get what we want and get what we need in that dressing room. And I think day by day, it's heading in the direction that we want it to go. And that performance and that result yesterday is just another piece of evidence of that.
You know what, Matt? I can't disagree with what you're saying there. I really can't. I mean, I am torn when we use that word title race, because I look at games like yesterday. I look at games like Arsenal. Look at games like City. I know these are not easy games. I know you're not going to go up there and win, but I just feel if you could convert one of those games from a draw into 3, I would have a genuine belief that we are in a title race. I mean, Sam, as the outsider, I hate asking this question. You can see I'm smiling. Look, because I'll tell you why I'm smiling, right? We're the 15th of January, right? This is real uncharted territory. We're over the halfway mark of the season. I mean, look, we have played, I think, more than the games ahead of 1, apart from Villa. To be fair, Villa are on the same amount of games that we've played, 21. Of course, the rest of the top 4 or 5 have played 20. I mean, Sam, Spurs currently sit 5 points off the top of the Premier League. Of course, Liverpool do have a game in hand. We're level on points of Arsenal, who again made that point. I do have a game in hand. Sam, I'm trying to keep a straight face here. Are Spurs in the title race, Sam?
You know, I said I hark back to a piece that I wrote earlier today that will go out later on tonight and being a Daily Mail tomorrow morning. You've got to look at when you decide for that question and when you try and answer that question. I think your best guide to answering that question is the league table. You know, if you look at the league table, then the fact of the matter is that Tottenham are in the title race because you're 5 points adrift of the team that are top of the table, with just under half of the games to go. Look, realistically, do I think you're going to be there or thereabouts at the end of the season? Probably not. No, I don't think. The team is quite there and good enough to compete with City now, who have De Bruyne back. You know, Liverpool looks strong, and you know they strengthened. But no, listen, they've lost Mo Salah, haven't they, to the African Nations Cup for a while. So it'll be interesting to see how they react to his absence. You know, Arsenal will I'm sure will come again. But at the moment, you're there. You are there. You are in the title race. And the facts absolutely back that up. So when Ange Postecoglou says last Friday at his press conference at Enfield that Tottenham are in the title race, and it makes pretty much every single back page on Saturday morning, it's absolutely true and it's absolutely right, because they are, and again, that is testament to the work that he's done. And I just wanted to pick up on something that Matt just said in his excellent previous answer about the kind of reaction that Postecoglou has had on his players and the squad in general, because it's not just the players that he's using that are responding to his methods and just how he is as a guy. A lot of the dealings and conversations that I've had with regards to Tottenham this season and Ange's approach to players is that even the players who are on the peripheries of the squad, who would generally be upset with the way they've been treated or not happy with the way they've been treated, absolutely love him, because he's just a straight up and down guy. He just tells them straight, look, I get you being frustrated, but you're not playing, and these are the reasons why you're not playing. And I think when you're a footballer, you appreciate that honesty. You know, you don't want to be fed a line just to from your manager just so he can appease you and he can play a political game. Players don't want that. They just want honesty. And from everything that I've heard about Ange Postecoglou is that he's straight up and down, he's honest, and even to the point where the players that he's not playing want him to succeed. So, when
that's interesting. That is so interesting.
Yeah. So when those players are on board, then you can imagine what he's like to play for the players who are in the team, who do have a chance of playing. And I think that is almost his biggest accomplishment. Yeah, it isn't I don't think it is the league table, although the results have been good. I don't think that is. I think the way he has galvanized that squad, who, listen, we've heard all the stories about what the squad was like under Antonio Conte towards the back end of the season. It was fractured, and there were cliques, but he's sort of put it all back together, and he's repaired it with honesty and just being a genuinely good guy, and he's been he's himself and he's authentic, and the players have responded to that, and I think that is why, on top of the sort of the brilliant, I think, attacking philosophy and front foot philosophy that he's installed, I think his man management is a major reason as to why Tottenham have performed so well this season.
Oh, Sam, you're getting me excited, mate. This is the problem with this football club, right?
Yeah.
I love this football club, but I tell you what, when they reel you back in and they break your heart again, it's the worst. Because you always say, I'm not going back. I'm not putting myself through this again. And they reel you back in and give you that hope and optimism. And you're like, damn, they've got me again. They've got me again. And my God, when you're hearing you, mate, say there, I mean, that says so much, doesn't it, Matt? I mean, I think what Sam says there is representative of what we're seeing, that to be able to keep not just 11 players happy, to be able to keep 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 players happy, which is representative of the fact, Matt, that I don't think you could say this season has been too many games in which we simply haven't turned up. I mean, Wolves was a massive disappointment. We led the game for obviously large period of it right to the very, very end and just simply didn't get over the line. We discussed the fact about the Villa, the West Ham performances, but Spurs haven't under Ange yet, in my opinion, been totally and utterly outplayed. And that again goes back to Sam's point there, is that you do feel the dressing room are absolutely buying into this man. And I think there's no greater example of that as in yesterday. They score Spurs within 52 seconds of the restart. This is a man that has a dramatic effect on that dressing room in every single team talk that man takes. I just want to pick Sam up on one thing, Matt, and throw it to you and not put Sam in a difficult position. Sami says, in his opinion, he doesn't think Spurs have got the depth for the second part of the season to be in the title race. But if I say to you, Matt, but we're getting all of our integral players back for the second half of the season, the likes of Sonny, the likes of Maddison, Pat Matassar, Yves Bissouma, is there an argument, Matt, based on the first 11 games where Spurs were top up until the Chelsea game? Could you make an argument, Matt, that we should be even stronger and therefore could push one of those teams at the top all the way, Matt?
Do you want me to say we're winning the league? Is that what you're asking me, Ricky? No, look, I completely get your point. And I kind of said it when we went on that run. It was a 4 defeats and 5 after that game against Chelsea when people were really losing their mind. Some people were crazily starting to question Ange Postecoglou. I think that first 10 games of the season is up here. The next 5 are down here, and we're gonna even out somewhere in the middle. And look, obviously having the full collection of players available is gonna help us kind of push a little bit back up to where we were. I don't think we're going to have a period for the rest of the season where we are hitting that, 8 wins in 10 with 2 draws, playing the incredible football that we were for 90 minutes every game. I don't think we've really seen a full 90 minutes where we played to that level since then. Obviously, I know, again, the injuries playing a part. But I think you just do need to compare us to what else is there. I think looking at ourselves on our own, yes, that is an incredible team that can beat anyone on their day. But how close are we really to Manchester City when De Bruyne is in that team and when Haaland comes back? I don't think we're close enough to say that we have a very, very good chance towards the end of the season. I think if luck goes our way, again, we're in that title race, but I don't want to get ahead of myself and say that we're going to do it. But look, on the point as well that you made about the players really buying into Ange Postecoglou, and I love the interview he did. I think it was with Rio Ferdinand towards the start of the season, where they were looking at a bit of the way we played in the end of the first half in that friendly against Shakhtar Donetsk when we were 1-0 up, and Rio Ferdinand pointed out that our pressing was really lethargic. Shakhtar had the ball at the back, and Kane was the only one even in their half pressing high up the pitch. And Postecoglou made the point that we were playing the scoreboard rather than the game itself. And that point that I made earlier about constantly coming back in these games when we go behind away to big teams. A few games where we've killed it off with quite a few goals. That Newcastle game comes to mind. It's because he has fully instilled that mentality and that philosophy that every phase of play is equal. There's no phase of play where, okay, we're going to have to just defend and hope to get through to half time. It's every single time you get the ball, you do the same thing. Don't play the scoreboard, play the game, play the 11 players that are in front of you. And as every single player buys into that more and more, we're going to get closer and closer to potentially being able to call ourselves champions of England. There's a long way to go. A bit more depth needs to be added, but we're fully on that path.
Listen, we are getting a bit excited. Why can't we? We had a really good start to the season. Talk about depth. That's where we are going to turn to next. We've got the wonderful Sami Mokbel here, of course. Obviously, Mousesport's very, very own. We are going to go for our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. Believe it or not, Spurs have got 2 signings in the bag, and we've still got over 1,000 plus of you watching us live. Again, thank you so much for all your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. I'm joined by, my co-host of these transfer shows that are still very much fun, despite Spurs bagging 2 very early ones. The wonderful Matty Hayes is back alongside me, as is chief football reporter for the Mail, of course, wonderful Sami Mokbel. All this man's work you see online. We'll be getting a piece out there very, very soon about Roy Keane. And John, we'll quickly touch upon it now, Sam, if we can, because look, on the back of that United game, the worst thing you could do is turn on sometimes Sky Sports after the back of, the back of a really good game against Man United. Because, I mean, just to quote Roy Keane, I'll paraphrase because I don't have the full quote marks available to me here. Roy was, and I've got to say, Roy also has said he's a Spurs fan. For those that watch the overlap, Roy says he's a Spurs fan. And sure, what I will say about Roy is maybe he's a Spurs fan because sometimes we hate Tottenham and we're Tottenham fans. So it does make sense. It does feel like he absolutely hates the football club at times, which does make a lot of sense and a lot of pain that he's put them through. But he quoted the fact that he doesn't really understand the absolute hype around that result, given the fact Spurs didn't win the game and all this praise was being dished out. The bus driver was getting praise. The players were getting praise. The coaching staff was getting praise. I don't think the bus driver did actually get the praise. I mean, what did you make, Sam, of those comments from Roy, and what did you take out of them for you? And we really got a piece coming out. So give us a bit of momentum about this piece.
Yeah, so We were really, so as an outlet, we were really interested in Roy's comments from last night after the game. Just to the point that did he have a point? Does he have a point? Because we were everyone was waxing lyrical about this performance at Old Trafford, but in effect, he was right. They fell behind. Tottenham fell behind twice. And they didn't win the game, So I think Roy Keane's point was hang on a minute, they were good, but put your foot on the ball, because the end product of playing well in a football match has to be actually winning the game and getting the 3 points, and that is just something that Tottenham, for as well as they played yesterday, didn't execute that. So I think he made a fair point and a very, very valid point, and it was a point enough for us to go and explore and to try and answer the question as to whether this new Tottenham manager under Ange Postecoglou, whether are they the real deal, or is it just a load of hype? And hopefully, what I've done and what I've written will should say that I think Tottenham are the real deal. I think there are a lot of really positive signs this season under Ange Postecoglou, but that does have to come with a load of with certain caveats. I don't think we can judge. We can't judge them now as well as good as they've been. 5 points off the top of the table, they are in the title race. So, so far so good. I go on to make the point about trophies, and you are in the title race, and you're still in the FA Cup. So there are those to go for. But I think what would realistically symbolize tangible progress and success this season would be, and I'm sure you guys would agree, would effectively be finishing in the top 4. I think that would provide realistic and tangible, genuine, authentic progress and success for this season. Yeah, okay, it's not a trophy, but there are only a certain number of trophies you can win in a season. And Man City won them all last season, so it's it's even harder now to win to get anywhere near winning those trophies. So for me, if Ange Postecoglou's first season in charge is to be deemed a success, then a total success, then I think getting into the top 4 and qualifying for the Champions League would signify, as I say, genuine progress. And I think everyone connected with Tottenham should be and would be happy with that. So, going back to the point about Roy Keane, I think it was slightly harsh given the way that Tottenham played yesterday, but he makes a very, very valid point.
Matt, what's your takeaway from Roy Keane's comments? I know, again, with Spurs fans, he does split opinion. Many do, as Sam says, their value is honesty. I go back to the point I said to you earlier, that I feel if Spurs had turned one of those draws away at some of those big significant clubs into a win, I feel Spurs have given a lot more backing and belief in a potential title race. I think what actually I heard Simon Jordan say, and again, Simon Jordan does polarize opinion very much on TalkSport, that, and I do understand where he came from with this. He said the point that Spurs so far under Ange, whilst they've shown they can take aggression in a game, they've not physically, and I mean, I'm putting this in football terms, right? They've not physically squeezed the life out of an opponent where you feel they've got complete, utter control of it. And I understood where he was coming from, because I think, like you said earlier, Matt, we've not yet seen Ange ball be dominated for a full 90 minutes. And that can come down to many factors. It could be coming down to the fact we haven't got the players in terms of the 11 yet to be able to do that. It can come down to the fact, look at the amount of injuries Spurs have suffered because of the consequence of playing Ange ball. But what do you feel for you, Matt, on the back of Roy Keane's comments? Were they fair? Were they harsh? Where do you sit?
I think they were harsh for 2 reasons. The first one is I think he's taking it out on the wrong people. He seems to be angry at Spurs that people are praising them as much as they are. That's nothing to do with Tottenham. Ange isn't coming out and begging for people to say that everything was perfect. The players aren't coming out and saying, you need, like, it's people outside of Tottenham that are looking in and saying, well, they've been this good at that. They've been blah, blah, blah. there's no reason for Keane to take that anger out on Tottenham. They're just doing what they're going to do, and they're doing it damn well, which I'm sure he'd be the first to admit as well. The second thing that I'd say is, if the only criticism he can really put at Tottenham is, well, you're not perfect, I think that says a hell of a lot about how far we've actually come. And I used to always make this point about Pochettino's spell at Spurs, where people always said, but it didn't matter because he didn't win a trophy. Again, if that's the only criticism you can put on him when he came into a team that had Kyle Naughton, Eunice Kabul, and Benoit Suakato starting in that back four, and the only criticism you have is you didn't win a trophy, I think you need to look at the journey that actually got him from where he was to where he ended up. And with Postecoglou, again, with that team he inherited over the summer, with the disconnect, not only in the dressing room, but all the way up through the club and with the fan base as well, with the terrible football that was being played and the amount of players that just had to go. If now the only thing you can say is it's not perfect, or that we haven't squeezed the life out of an opponent over 90 minutes, I think you need to look at the progress that has been made there. And look, I know it's way too easy to get caught up in the moment and kind of just evaluate what's right in front of your eyes as a sole sort of factor, but the overall context, the overall progress is absolutely fantastic, and I think we need to be a bit more balanced, I'd say, when looking at what Spurs have actually done.
Yeah, that's an interesting piece. Again, Sami's got that live for you. For listeners on audio, that is available right now. You can go and check that out, of course, on Mail Sport. Obviously, for Sami there, that's where you'll find that piece. Interestingly, guys, what I want to bring to air is that the FIFA Best Awards are taking place. This is on the previous, of course, night for the listeners on audio. Tottenham captain Heung-min Son voted Ange Postecoglou first in his FIFA The Best Coach rankings. Harry Kane, former Tottenham Hotspur striker, still feels really weird saying that, voted Ange third in the best coach rankings, which again, I think says you a lot about, and Sam said this earlier, it's not always the players that were playing or players that were on periphery of moves. There's been that genuine respect for Ange across, the squad, which tells you how that man is managing it. And in terms of managing the squad, Sam, coming over to you, look, we've touched upon already, I feel like the injuries, the suspensions, and Ange's start so far. Want to ask you about the contractual situation, if that's okay. We've seen, obviously, Pat Matasar recently sign a new contract until 2030. That was then further enhanced on the contractual situation with Destiny Udogie committing his future long-term to the football club. Now, we have got a couple of players that are entering, you'd say, the crucial elements of the 2-3 year period. You've got Heung-min Son in there, Giovanni Lo Celso, Bentancur, who, I think that guy's stock is rising every game, though, isn't it? He's been absolutely superb since coming back. And Yves Bissouma. Anything we should keep an eye on at the moment, Sam, in the real short term, that you can see any players committing their future beyond those contractual limits at the moment?
I think the club will look to get January out of the way first before kind of finalising any of those renewals of those deals. But generally speaking, and there's never going to be a hard and fast rule, but Tottenham under Daniel Levy are immensely reluctant to let players go into the final 2 years of their contracts. I think that has always been the case recently, really over the past sort of 2 or 3 years. There is a reluctance from Daniel Levy to do that, given the dangers and the risks of players running down their contracts, and the difficult situation that could potentially leave the club. So look, Bentancur, I think, is such an integral part of the way you play. I think he just gets it, doesn't he? He gets Ange ball. He gets, he's such an intelligent player that I can just see, he's crucial to the way Tottenham need to play, and that will be one for sure that they will look to do, at the very least, to have a conversation to try and get him to ensure there's no kind of uncertainty over his future going into the summer. Goes without saying that Heung-min Son is your probably your most high profile player and your star player, and your centre forward at the moment. So trying to avoid any uncertainty over that there is certainly a conversation to be had with Heung-min Son. I think has he got 2 years? Will he have 2 years left heading into the summer?
Yes, that's correct. That is right.
Yeah. So that is one that could, that could gather pace towards the back end of this season to try and maybe get something agreed. If not before the end of the season, then at some point in the summer or when he returns for pre-season. but yeah, look, there will be a commitment from Tottenham to ensure that those, and you mentioned Basuma as well. You know, he's had some maybe some disciplinary issues, problems on the pitch, hasn't he? And I think that's and you know that will need sort of addressing. But again, he's played an important role under under Postecoglou, and I'm sure there will be a conversation to be had with him as well.
You mentioned there that we'd be looking to get January out of the way, so looking a bit more at that business going into the window. We all knew the priority was to bring in a centre back, which we managed with Radu Dragusin, and as well bringing in a versatile front player. Timo Werner has joined on loan. It's heavily rumoured that centre mid is going to be our focus for the rest of the window if we do get a deal done. Is that the only one Spurs are looking at, or do you know what the focus might be on for the next 2 weeks?
I think if they can get a centre midfielder that is towards the top of their priority list, I think they would if they can they would happily do that in January. But I don't think they will just get one in for the sake of it. They will do one that they would, if they would do a play that would fit into that they have identified and would fit into their plans long term. The immediate one that springs to mind is one that they would do in a heartbeat is Conor Gallagher at Chelsea. You know, long been rumoured that Ange is a big fan of his. Those assertions are genuine. You know, Tottenham are in the market for Conor Gallagher. That's my information anyway. I was speaking to someone relatively recently, and another recruitment figure at another Premier League club who suggested to me that, you know, Tottenham, this was in November, that Tottenham were already on the case with regards to Conor Gallagher in January if they can get it over the line. I think it would be a difficult deal to do right now ahead of this deadline, but I can see Tottenham making Conor Gallagher a top priority or the top priority in the summer window. You know, provided he hasn't signed a new contract at Chelsea by then, and obviously those talks are ongoing at Chelsea. But I would see that move having big potential, and I think that will have legs because the interest is certainly genuine.
If I could just throw another couple of names at you, Calvin Phillips is one that's come up in the last couple of days. Maybe if Gallagher is a deal that we'd be looking at in the summer, maybe a 6-month loan for Calvin Phillips could be on the table, and as well Hayden Hackney for Middlesbrough scored the winner against Chelsea in the League Cup last week. Is there any legs to either of those rumours?
Calvin Phillips is being, I think, my information on that front, generally speaking, is that Manchester City want a really big loan fee for that deal to happen, and it's substantial. And I think clubs, even the top clubs who have got some money to spend, are looking at those deals and have analysed those numbers and thought that it doesn't stack up. It's too much for a player that we're not going to get on a permanent deal. And then don't forget as well, I think they're going to want the buying club to pay a significant portion of his wages as well. So for a 6-month deal, the numbers, and I know a lot of clubs have looked at the numbers and thought, no, it's simply not doable. It's not worth it. What I think will happen eventually with Calvin Phillips is, I think the big clubs like Tottenham, who have looked at it, thought about it, and maybe thought, no, it's probably not for us in this window, they will move on. And I think there is then a lower level of club that will then look to maybe do Calvin Phillips later on in the window if they can do it at a lower price. But I don't think he will be a priority for Tottenham right now.
Just one more name to throw out, if you don't mind, Sam, that's come to light in the last day or so, is that of Wolves midfielder João Gomez. I feel that comes on the back, obviously, of Wolves' situation financially. I mean, I think they're riding the line with regards to FFP. I mean, look, we record on the day here in which we've seen Forest and Everton again charged with in breach of the FFP regulations. Any rumours you've heard on that one in terms of João Gomez being available and a player maybe at Spurs have looked at or scouted at all from your understanding, Sam?
I saw the reports. I've seen the reports this morning. Try to verify. I've not got significant news to bring you on that one. It wasn't one that immediately was hot when I asked the question. That's not to discredit any of the reports.
No.
But yeah, it wasn't something that someone immediately come back to me and say, yeah, that's correct. So that might be one just so I can see.
Okay, no problem at all. And what I might just do, if you don't mind, Sam, is just because you've only brought up Gallagher, it might be worth in terms of just trying to deal with the players that are kind of coming up. On Gallagher, what I'm really interested to ask you is that, look, there's many different feelings around Gallagher. Some maybe trying to understand, well, look, the guy, I mean, I know this is not an obvious thing at the moment because Chelsea's still got a battle to do. He's arguably got, can I say a quarter of a foot in a cup final? I don't know, you can call it a quarter because they've got work to do. They've got work to do, haven't they, Chelsea, to turn that around. And when you also consider the fact that he's currently the standing captain, it is his boyhood club. I mean, am I right in saying, Sam, and this just sounds like a real basic thing to ask you, but I feel like I've got to ask you this, that surely Spurs would not be showing encouragement for the player if they've not been tipped off somewhere down the player's reps end that he would be interested in a move to Spurs, because all I see really from a lot of Chelsea social accounts is that Gallagher would not want to look at Spurs. But then again, I mean, why would Spurs be sniffing around the player that wouldn't have a genuine interest in moving to the club? And again, it appears that work has gone into this, not just over one window, but over a couple, to bring the player to the club, regardless of it might be this window or the summer, Sam.
No, yeah. I think you're totally right, Ricky. I think they wouldn't go and pursue or hold a genuine interest, a genuine long-term interest in the player without having had the encouragement to do so. Now, there are several reasons why representatives of Conor Gallagher would give Tottenham encouragement to sort of continue their interest. Like the most basic one is yes, he would be absolutely interested in a move to Tottenham if push came to shove. Obviously, the cynical side of me, and I have seen this happen so many times before, that Gallagher or Gallagher's reps may use Tottenham's interest to kind of drive a new contract at Chelsea, and we know he's Chelsea through and through. He's come through the academy there. He stated, and we've had information that I think he'd probably, at least for the time being, stay and fight for his place and play regularly at the team that he came through the ranks at. But this is professional football, and every player, certainly one who's in the England squad and went to the World Cup, will likely go to the Euros next summer. Players like that come at a premium, and if Chelsea, who are, sorry to bring up FFP again, but who there are always questions over Chelsea and how much they spent and how close to the win they're flying with FFP. If Conor Gallagher doesn't feel that he's getting paid what he should be getting paid, and he may be able to get a better deal or get more money at Tottenham, then that may also be a factor moving forward into the summer transfer window. But I think there is a lot of water under the bridge that needs to pass before that, and I just think Gallagher will end up staying for the time being, and then I think that an ultimate and a final decision will be made at the end of the season.
That's your gut feeling, Sam, for you? That's your gut feeling?
Yeah, it's a gut feeling that I know Tottenham are interested. That's absolutely clear, and there is no doubt about that in my mind.
Yep.
I just think that deal is easier to do in January. There'll be more. Yeah, they'll have more legs to it then. And at one point, obviously, we must add with Gallagher is because he's homegrown, that he counts as absolute pure profit on Chelsea's FFP balance sheet if they were to sell him, which obviously, given maybe the problems that Chelsea may have with FFP moving forward, I think that could also be a factor.
Interesting. I'm going to hand over to Matt. I'm going to maybe ask Matty to roll 2 into 1 for me in relation to Timo Werner's start at Spurs and where that maybe leaves Richarlison long term, who at the moment can't stop scoring. So, Matt, it's an easy one for you, mate. I'll throw it over to you, my mate.
Yeah, look, the biggest fear for Spurs heading into this season was that we might not be able to replace the goals and assists. You can't forget of Harry Kane after his big move to Bayern Munich. Timo Werner, it was a decent start for him yesterday. Sami getting an assist for that goal for Rodrigo Bentancur in the second half, and he said himself that he's not exactly a goal scorer anymore, but he feels he can contribute a little bit more, maybe in the way of assists for Tottenham, and that could work out with the form that Richarlison has hit at the perfect moment. With Son heading off to the Asian Cup, it's 6-6 now for Richarlison. 8 goals and 3 assists in all competitions for the season, which is more than any Arsenal attacker and also more than any Premier League forward that's dissed him on a podcast that will remain unnamed. Look, I'm just interested to see, Sami, how you think Tottenham might fare for the rest of the season with those forward options, with Werner just coming in and Richarlison hitting some form.
Yeah. I think I wrote a piece on Werner on his debut yesterday, and I thought there were some positive signs with Werner without setting the world on fire. I thought he showed enough for there to prove that there is something to work with there. I totally agree with him that he isn't a goal scorer. I thought the chances that he did have, he had 3 in the first half, that he showed very little composure in those positions, and I thought he was very erratic. Particularly one with I think he was one just before half time. Beautiful pass by Oliver Skipp. And yeah, the finish was wayward and lacked composure and any kind of finesse, and that was always his downfall at Chelsea. He'd get himself into really good positions, his pace and movement would get him into good positions, but the finishing was always lacking. Only from what we saw yesterday, I think that may continue to be the case, but that isn't to say that he can't have an important role to play. Down one of the flanks, I thought he worked hard. I thought he put his hand up to run back and to be disciplined. And as you say, he put the goal on the plate for Bentancur on at the start of the second half, and I thought that was a big positive for him. He can certainly be a big option for them and an important option. But I just don't see how he would play regularly. Will start regularly. Once you've got all of your best players back, we still got Heung-min Son to go back into that side. Kulusevski still to go back into that team. It's a tall order for him to play regularly, but I think he, coming off the bench and maybe where Ange may rotate some of his wide players, I think there is certainly scope there for him to play some role. Richarlison, always, he never lacks on commitment. He's always up for the fight, isn't he? And he's always looks like he's playing on the edge, and he could flip at any minute. But he is the absolute archetypal confidence player. He was at Watford, he was at Everton, and he is at Tottenham. And the fact that he's now scoring goals and he's full of confidence. Kane's gone. He hasn't got that shadow there. He can play maybe with a little bit more freedom now. He's playing through the centre as well in Son's absence. He's the main man at the moment, and he's thriving on that, and that's great for him because he's genuinely a really good guy, and I hope that scenario can continue for him because there is talent there, and I think he's had a rough time since arriving from last season. 60 million quid, invariably people think you're going to hit the ground running, but you are joining a different setup, and he was joining a team under Antonio Conte at the time that was set up really to defend and didn't really play to his strength. He's now in a team that is playing front foot football, high octane. And he's thriving. I think he's playing really, really well at the moment.
Where do we stand on Richarlison's future, Sami? It has been interest from Saudi Arabia in the last couple of months.
Yeah, and that will continue that will continue. There will always be rumours with regards to Richarlison, but I would suspect, and I think he'd be foolish to consider that right now in his career. He's at the height of his his powers right now. He's playing in a team that are flying. He's the main man. Why would you leave, and why would you sacrifice that to go and earn, albeit a hell of a lot more money in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia? I don't see from a sporting perspective why he would do that. He's already earning, substantial amounts at Tottenham, and I think the move to Tottenham has taken a long while for him to flourish, but he's there now. I don't see why he would sacrifice all of that hard work to get himself up and running at Tottenham, just to go almost instantaneously to go to Saudi Arabia just when his Tottenham career is taking off.
Sam, I am going to try and speed things up a little bit. I am conscious of time to get off those bingo cards for those out there. Look, this time last week, the deal was in the balance. There was nerves. There was a lot going on social media, Sam. And mate, you're lucky you're here this week, not last week. I tell you, because you would have been absolutely peppered on it. I tell you, mate, with regards to Radu Dragashin's deal getting over the line. I think we all went to bed. I think it was this time last week, Matt, wasn't it, where we heard of Bayern's interest, and there was genuine, I think, maybe acceptance. I think, Matt, you did accept it. Matt was accepted of the fact Bayern had already got the player, already written it off, and we woke up to a lovely surprise this time last week that Radu Dragashin decided to pick Tottenham over Bayern Munich. Look, we're now nearly a week on. What do you make, Sam, of the fact Spurs, it appears, identified and got their number one defensive target? Just how much of a statement does it feel for you? And I just wonder where that leaves Jed Spence. Obviously, he's now gone back on loan the opposite way, of course, to Genoa. Do you feel he's got any sense of a future at Spurs, or is that loan just really placating the player in terms of game time? What do you feel for you, Sam, on those couple of moves in and out there?
Yeah, in terms of Jed Spence, I don't think he's got a future at Tottenham. It was from a very good from a very good source. Maybe about 10 days ago, when he returned from Leeds under a cloud, shall we say, it was reiterated to me again that as soon as he arrived, they would immediately, and I wrote it at the time, they immediately would look to get him out of the door. There are several reasons for that. Hasn't covered himself in glory, shall we say, since he's been at Tottenham. And he's been shipped off to Genoa, and I think for as long as the time as Ange Postecoglou is at the club, and it looks to be he's going to be there for hopefully for your guys' sake for a long while. I don't think he's got a future at Tottenham, unfortunately for him. In terms of Dragushin, I think that is the power of Ange Postecoglou. I was speaking to some people of some representatives of players that Tottenham have had an interest in and did have an interest in last summer, and the feedback that I was getting last summer was, we're not sure. You Tottenham are in a bit of a period of flux here. They're a transitional period. We don't really know what Ange Postecoglou is going to be like as a manager. We're not really interested in Tottenham this summer. I made the same phone calls last week, and I said, well, what's going on with, what's going on? I won't name the players, obviously. What's going on with X player, and what's anything with Tottenham? Complete change around. Oh yeah, he definitely. I think he's got legs, and I think he's got legs in the summer. I think that deal's got, that deal's going to, could happen. They're definitely interested, or would definitely consider it. So the tables have literally turned 180 degrees. You had players last summer, only 7 months ago, who were like, we're not sure about that. And in 7 months, Ange Postecoglou has turned it around. He's built this reputation already of a team that's going places, of a team that's playing attacking football. You're going to get honesty from him. He just seems like a great manager to work for, and opposing players and potential targets in the summer are taking notice. And I think that was part of the reason why Dragushin chose Tottenham over Bayern Munich.
Can I just say very quickly before Matt comes in there, I don't think I smiled on a show as much with Sami Mokbel. It's only taken about 5 years, Sam. It's only taken 5
yeah,
years, wasn't it?
we got there in the end, I didn't we?
We owed one. We was owed one. Go on, Matty. I'll throw it to you, my man.
Yeah, look, well, as players fighting each other try to get in the door, there's one that looks like he'll be on his way out, whether that's this month or in the summer, and that's Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. That we know that depends heavily on any move coming in, which could be Conor Gallagher. Sami, do you think it's likely that Højbjerg will be one of the first to go in that midfield?
Yeah, I think his future at Tottenham, his long-term future at Tottenham, shall we say, is probably coming to an end. I think he would have liked to have moved, in all honesty, at the start of this season. I think there was obviously the interest in Atletico Madrid for him was genuine. I think he wanted that move to happen. For whatever reason, it didn't. And now he's sort of a bit part player in a team that is high octane, and it's all about pressing and you know, getting in your opponent's faces. And I just don't think that is necessarily what Højbjerg is good at. So I think he will certainly be one that will look to get off, if not in this window, certainly in the summer window. And he's an excellent player, so I think there'll be takers. I think there'll definitely be takers for Højbjerg.
Interesting. You know, on Højbjerg, I've got to say that I've said this before with Pierre that I can't question his professionalism. I think, again, in that game against United was a reassuring factor for me that ultimately you can trust him to do a job and he will do it. And I think that re-emphasised the fact that if the window does close tomorrow and Pierre-Emile Højbjerg remains a Spurs player, whilst I think we've said this numerous times, Matty, whilst I think we do feel that he's not suited to the way Ange wants to play and he's not an Ange Postecoglou player, you will get absolutely everything from him. You know, he will give absolutely everything. And I think that gives me a sense of reassurance that whilst there are players there that aren't typically fitted to the style of play, Sam, they'll still give you everything. And I think reality is when we do get those players back, fingers crossed, and hopefully we don't lose any more, that with no due disrespect, I mean, Højbjerg will be quite far down that pecking order anyway when you've got Maddison coming back, when you've got Sarr coming back, when you've got Bissouma coming back. So that's obviously quite a shame for the player because I'm sure, I mean, it appears Pierre wants to play every game. He's been used to playing every game, really, I feel, during his period, obviously, of his Spurs career and before that at Southampton. I think he's really struggled with that. And, you know, we have that joke where we say the club, I mean, the games at home are like a nightclub, but I mean, Pierre's the first really off the dance floor. Quote me on it from Werner on the dance floor. He is the first off it. So I'll be interested to see how he does take the fact that if he does remain a player, will we see that attitude change? But I mean, look, I have to be able to say, look, for me, I haven't got a massive issue with him staying. I think as long as we don't see the drop in terms of attitude or level of play, then maybe it's one for the summer, Sam. Because you've said it before. I mean, if Gallagher is a real genuine Spurs target, then why rush it? I mean, wait until the summer. And I think we've seen this a lot now with recruitment that, you know, the worst thing you can do is rush. Maybe it is best to hold off the same way Liverpool did when bringing Virgil van Dijk, and they didn't sign that defender straight away. They waited for Virgil van Dijk, and I wouldn't be against that for Spurs. So I think it's an interesting one to see how that plays out. And maybe, Matt, I'll hand back over to you.
Yeah, I just want to say on the Højbjerg point as well, I think that a lot of players, when they're out of favour in a team where they know it's coming to the end, they kind of down tools. But I think Højbjerg knows he's playing for his future, and he's playing for whatever potential move he'll get in the summer. And obviously it's great for him that, you know, he's going to get that game time, but also it's great for us that we have that reliable option, like you said there, Ricky. If we are going to wait until we might sign Conor Gallagher in the summer. Sami, a few more players that look likely to be on the way out of Spurs again, whether it's in January or in the summer. There's Sergio Reguilón, who had that loan deal at Manchester United ended early. Brian Hill as well, who seems to fall further and further down the pecking order, especially now with the signing of Timo Werner. And as well, if I could just ask you about Japhet Tanganga, who's yet to make an appearance at Augsburg. Is there any possibility maybe of that loan being ended and a new one found for him this month?
In terms of Japhet Tanganga, I just don't see the point of him being at Augsburg. You know, if you're not playing, then, you know, there will be clubs here who would, you know, maybe in the Championship that would look to, that could offer him regular game time. And for someone who has played regularly for Tottenham for part of his career to now being elsewhere in a different country and not playing absolutely any sort of first or virtually no first team football at all, I think that will be difficult for him. I don't know, but I can see I can see the credence in Tottenham maybe looking to bring him back and trying to get another move for him just to get him playing. And that will only help if they will obviously look to move him on a permanent deal if he's playing regular football at the end of the season. In terms of Reguilón, when I was making my inquiries with regards to Jed Spence last week, or no, 10 days ago when he returned from Leeds, it was reiterated to me that it would be Spence and Reguilón who they were looking to find takers for. So unless something drastically changes in those 10 days, which I don't think they have, Tottenham are certainly open to business for Sergio Reguilón, and I expect him to go. Brian Gill, I think there is a player in Brian Gill. I just think he's quite slight, and that isn't against players who are slight, because we've seen David Silva, Bernardo Silva, Modric, players of that ilk who may not have the physical presence, but my God, they're beautiful to watch, and they've been some of the best players in Premier League history. I just don't get that same impression with Brian Gill, unfortunately. I think the physical aspect of the Premier League is just too overpowering for him, and I just don't think his technical game is good enough to overcome those obstacles. And listen, I've not heard anything with regards to Brian Gill's future, but he's way down the pecking order, and once everyone's fit, and I suspect that he will be another one who sooner rather than later will probably be out the door.
Sam, before we come on to our two favourite questions to ask you, do you mind me just asking you about Oliver Skipp and Brennan Johnson very quickly? They're kind of coming through the comments. I mean, Skippy is, I mean this with all due respect, I feel like he also maybe will be quite far down the pecking order when the likes of Maddison, Sarr, Basuma come back. I just wonder whether you genuinely feel he has got a future at Spurs, because I mean 12, 18 months ago under Mourinho, he was the man telling us that Skipp could be the next captain of Tottenham. And I feel, I don't know, again, I don't want to judge a sizable portion, Matt, of Spurs Twitter, but it does feel like we always have one player that is specifically targeted, and it used to be Harry Winks. It now appears that's now moved on to Oliver Skipp in terms of whether they're good enough. I just wonder, Sam, whether you feel, with a journey's hat on and you watch Skipp when he plays for Tottenham, do you feel he's got a genuine Spurs future, or do you feel that might be up in the air depending on obviously how that pecking order does work out come the summer? And by the fact I'm sure Skipp wants to have a decent Premier League career. I mean, look, for some players that love their boyhood club, turning out 15, 20 games is enough for them. They don't mind playing in the cup and, fulfilling the fact of coming off the bench. But I just wonder whether Skipp wants more than that. I'd be interested to get to know your gut on that. And also, Brennan Johnson start to Spurs. Again, yesterday, there's that feeling around Brennan that for what Spurs are paid in terms of the 50 million price tag, that maybe we'd like a bit more of an end product. But again, we have to remind ourselves he is fairly young. Just your thoughts on those couple of young players coming through at Spurs?
In terms of Oliver Skipp, Ricky, I think there will be his lack of action will sit uncomfortably with him, because his career under Mourinho and for a while I think under Conte as well, he was in the leadership group with Hugo Lloris and Harry Kane and Eric Dyer for a while before Ange disbanded that when he arrived. And I'm told that he's now put together a new leadership group with the likes of Son and Maddison and Romero. His career at Tottenham has really gone stale, and he has come through the ranks. I'm sure he loves the club, but there will come a point in his career where he says, well, I've got to get out and I've got to play, I've got to be playing regular football, because there's definitely a Premier League player in Oliver Skipp for sure. He's shown that in the past. So I think moving forward, he will have to have a difficult conversation, one with himself, with his representatives, and one with the club, because he will want to play. But I think that is one that can be pushed down that is a can that can kick down the road until the end of the season. And who was the last player, Ricky, that you were asking about?
Brennan Johnson, only because again, like, he came in obviously with a big price tag. I also am very confident, conscious Sam. He didn't get a full preseason under Ange, and that's why again, very very reluctant to judge players that haven't had that full preseason under Ange. You look at a player like Pedro Porro. Look what he's done for him having that full preseason under Ange, right?
Yeah, I think Brennan Johnson is going to be a fantastic player. I honestly do. I think he's got every single attribute in the that you need to be a very very good Premier League attacking player. He's got pace. He's got he works hard. He's got some power about him as well. But I think you're right. He just needs to embed into that team, and that is a difficult thing to do without having a pre-season, and having a full summer to prepare for the way a certain manager wants to play. So I think Brendan Johnson is just my personal opinion. I think Brendan Johnson will come good for Tottenham, and I think he'll be a really really important player for Tottenham in the future. But I think we will see the best of Brendan Johnson next season when he's had that time to embed into Ange Postecoglou's style of play.
Sam, thank you, mate. The interrogation is over. A couple of our favourite questions I had to ask, if you don't mind, mate. Look, I'd be interested to know for you, what do you feel constitutes success for Spurs in the first season under Ange? Where do you think the club will finish in the Premier League? And can we beat City in the FA Cup?
Look, I think what would constitute a good season for Ange Postecoglou is a top 4 finish. Even if you were to finish 5th and get into the Europa League, I don't think that's a disaster. But the way that you started the season, the first half of the season, I think there will probably be among the fan base a tinge of disappointment if you didn't make top 4. I think, that is the way that would go. So I think a top 4 finish would be absolutely fantastic. But then if you finished 5th, that wouldn't be a disaster either. Can you beat City in the Cup? I'm going to say no. Unfortunately, I think Sam.
Not on the final hurdle.
You were doing so well, Sammy.
Doing so well, mate.
But yeah, no. Listen, I think City are just clicking into gear now. They always do this, don't they? They always do this every single January. February, they flick the switch and then they power home. And there's ominous signs already that they're going to do this. De Bruyne is not even fully fit yet, not even sharp. And look at what he's doing. Haaland isn't even fit, not in the team. And they are going to be strong. So I think they will be very difficult to beat.
Doesn't change your mind, Sam. Can I just say this very quickly before Matt comes in there? Doesn't change the fact, you know the stats anyway, Sam. They've not even scored a goal at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I can't twist your arm, though. You still think it'll beat Spurs?
No, I think that. Yeah, I'm sorry, lads. I'm sorry. But I'm sure. Listen, you probably win, and then this clip will go around Twitter. On X. What does this guy know?
I love you, mate. Top man. Go on, Matty. Over to you.
Look, it's a question that is definitely much easier given that Tottenham have done, like we've said, a lot of business in the early stages of the window. But between now and the deadline on the 1st of February, Sammy, how many players do you think Spurs will manage to bring in?
If you were to do any more, it would be one. I think one max. I think the attention now will shift to trying to lighten the load a little bit and try and maybe get rid of some players for the right money. For the correct value, trying to offload players to try and kind of go again a bit more larger in the summer.
Sam, I got to say, thank you so much. I love the comments. Sam, would have advised you need to learn how to lie. You can't do it to these journalists. Look, these guys are in front of the managers every single week. He's part of the biggest British press papers out there, mate. We always value your honesty. I can honestly say, Sam, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And can I just say, I'm sure Sam and Matt agrees, it's lovely bringing you on when we can actually have a genuine, nice conversation where we're not firing 15, 20 names at you and we can talk more generally about football. I just feel like whenever we bring you on, it's very, who are we signing? Why have we not got them in? Why are we not doing the job? Where it's been a really nice, I think, just general football conversation about just how well Spurs are doing, how well the manager is. And I think, again, the insights you give us, Sam, in terms of the manager behind the scenes, those relationships that are building. I think many that listen and tune into this show now, again, we've got a great contingent of Aussie viewers and listeners now. I know they get so excited when they hear the British press come on here and just say those relationships forming behind the scenes. Are we on to a winner here, Sam? Is he for the long term? Do you feel, Ange?
Yeah, I do. I do. And the way he is behind the scenes with with club staff, the players, you just can't beat the honesty. And I think everyone, whatever line of work you're in, whether you work in a garage or wherever, or a shop floor, all you really want from your superiors and your bosses is honesty. You want them to tell you where you stand, and that's exactly what he does. And long may it continue for Tottenham, because they're really benefiting from that style. And it is, and this is no slight on Mourinho or Conte, but they were maybe perhaps a bit cuter with how they dealt with their players. But Postecoglou is certainly just a straight up and down guy, and I think the players are responding to that.
Got to agree. Matt, before we close it and give Sam the opportunity to tell us where we can find all the wonderful work he does. Matt, I tell you what, I've really enjoyed this. It's actually quite nice, Matt. I know we get into the hustle and bustle of transfer windows and demanding who we're going to sign, but isn't it nice, Matt? We're halfway through and we just get an insight into what it's like working behind the scenes with Ange, and ultimately just the hope, promise that comes, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just positives all over the place. And I think what's going to happen from this is all the journalists are going to be really annoyed when you start asking them on outside of the transfer window, because of how good it's actually been to just sit down and actually talk about football and talk about what the future might hold for Tottenham. It's been a great chat, and look, like I said, the positives are all over the place.
Oh, man. You mean I've got to bring Sami back for instant post-match reaction of the Man City Cup game?
Guaranteed.
Only if you've lost. Yeah, come on.
Thank you, mate. Listen, Sam, a reminder, where can everybody find the wonderful work you do? I know obviously a lot of it is online. Where can everybody find what you provide out there to not just Spurs, but the general footballing community? Where can we find you, Sam?
Yeah, my work will go on. It will go on. It goes in the physical Daily Mail every morning and mail on Sunday. My Twitter handle is Sami Mokbel 81_DM, and I post all my links to my work on there.
Sam, I mean it when I say it's always a genuine pleasure to have you on. Keep fighting the good fight. Keep giving us some positive news, and don't be afraid to give us a couple more signings if you can make them happen. Honestly, thank you so much. Wonderful Matty Hayes for the brilliant Sami Mokbel. We've been the last one on Spurs. Thank you so much as always, guys. We'll be back with you soon. From myself, from Matt, from Sami. Keep safe, keep well, and as always,